This is a 2015 MacBook Air that I paid £15 for. So of course, it's broken. At this price, my thoughts are it's either going to be a quick win or a complete write-off. I'll be fixing it up and then testing out Fedora on it. And check this out for packaging. That's duct tape. Anyway, with the laptop free from its tape packaging, we can see it has a damaged trackpad and a broken keyboard. The seller listed it as an 11-inch MacBook Air, but it turned out to be a 13-inch model. So let's see if the battery is dead. And it springs to life. No chime, but we do get the Apple logo, and in the meantime, I've been shopping. I've got a replacement trackpad, and I've got a few of these Apple NVMe stashed away, and I've bought a new keyboard for it as well. At this point, hopefully, with everything needed to fix the old laptop up, we can make a start. Get the back of the case off by undoing these tiny screws. And check this out for dirty. It's grim in here. Disconnect the battery. Undo the screws holding the battery down. Pop the battery out. Straight away, we are greeted with the backside of the trackpad. Undo more tiny screws. Attempt not to lose them. Trying to figure out how these things actually come out. Block the view in my head. And the broken trackpad is out. Little side by side comparison. And honestly, at this point, this is the easiest part of the entire repair. Now, for the slightly more involved task of replacing the keyboard. And by slightly more involved, I mean the worst keyboard replacement Apple has ever designed. Undo the screws from the logic board, of which there isn't much. Disconnect an alarmingly high number of different size ribbon cables. Unscrew the CPU heatsink and fan. Couldn't get this rubber cable off, so that's staying connected. And the logic board is free, just slightly tethered. Someone needs to tell this bloke to move his head out of the way. Pry the speakers out. Undo the charging board. Rip, then peel off the isolation layer. And we're presented with the backside of the keyboard. This is held down by a dozen of minute screws around the outside. Undo them all. Then I come into my own. Brute force. Being careful to make sure I do maximum damage to the keyboard, I start to peel it out. And then I notice something you never want to see. Something sticky on the backside of this keyboard. But anyway, back to being careful. One more final tug, and the mangled carcass of the old keyboard is free. Clear away my path of destruction. I now decide it's probably about time I should start caring about the screen, so I try to protect it. I clean the bulk of the grotty old liquid off the back. Given how much of a pain it was to get this old keyboard out, I'm half expecting this new one to be a bit of a fight. But no, it pops straight in, which frankly was not what I was expecting after this last half an hour. I double check it, and it looks alright. Start to screw the new keyboard into place. Keyboard all fitted. Fit the isolation layer that I was so careful with back on. A little brush, blow and a scrub to clean some of the old grot off. Screw the charging port back down. Try and remember how this logic board is fitted. Fit the logic board. Fit and hook up the CPU heatsink fan. And everything on this MacBook is tiny. For my aging eyes and my bare paw hands, it wasn't the easiest. Connect the Wi-Fi antenna. Clean and fit the speakers back on either side. Bit of Captain tape to cover the rip I didn't create. With the bulk of the work done, we can now fit the nice and simple trackpad. Screw that down. Hook up the two ribbon cables. Bit more Captain tape to hold that in place. Clean the battery. Fit the battery. Repaste the CPU. fit the heatsink, screw it down, fit the replacement NVMe drive. Before I commit and put the back on, I want to make sure it still turns on. And I think we're all a bit surprised here. It still turns on. With the repair work done, I want to clean it up as much as possible. I give the back case a once over, getting as much grime and dirt off as I can. Clean some of the baked in dirt off the sides of this laptop. Fit the back on the MacBook. Tidy the bench up. And we're done. Time to go and get Fedora on this sparklingly clean bit of electrical goodness. Fedora time. Plug in the USB adapter with Ethernet, hook up Ethernet, plug in the NVMe with Ventoy, and excuse us, San Miguel, I'm out of Brewdog. Turn the laptop on, holding Alt. Select EFI boot, and Ventoy greets us. Select Fedora KDE. I won't mention GNOME. And the live session of Fedora has now booted. Time to hard install Fedora. Following along with the simple install steps, it takes a little bit of time, but it's not that bad. After the installation is complete, remove the NVMe with Ventoy. Also, I swapped my San Miguel for a cup of tea. Log in with my very secure password. And the first thing I try to install is MacBook Pro Fan, which is crucial for these Intel CPU Macs running Linux. But the packages aren't up to date. To fix this, I run sudo dnf upgrade to upgrade all packages. It runs and completes. And you've now joined me on the other side with OBS installed and packages fully updated. And it's definitely time now to get MacBook Pro Fan running. MBP Fan ensures the fan operates correctly, ramping up when needed to keep the CPU properly cooled. I make sure it's enabled and then I double check the status. I want to see under services that it's actually running. Next, on all laptops running Linux, I installed TLP and TLP RDW. TLP is a power management tool that optimises battery usage and performance automatically, while TLP RTW enables power saving for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Once installed, I double check the TLP is running. Next up is a quick CPU stress test. Normally, I'd run Geekbench, but Linux, there's a great package called StressNG. I run it for 3 minutes to fully load the CPU and see how the temperatures are managed. I've also enabled brief metric output, as a default logging can generate a bit of data. During the test, temperatures peak at around 86 to 87 degrees, which is perfectly acceptable for these 5th gen i5s. These CPUs typically begin to thermal throttle in the high 90s to around 100 degrees. So this is well within the safe limit. There you go, test completed. Now for some CLI fun. As somewhat of a fish nerd myself, this CLI tool, ASCII Aquarium, however you're meant to say that, it's a firm favourite of mine. Next, C-Matrix. This is the cherry on top. This is how I feel when I'm actually messing about in terminal. Next up is Dust. Dust is a modern disk usage tool that shows which directories are using the most space in a clear, easy to read tree view. And I don't use it a great deal, but it's handy when you need it. And finally BTOP. But it's complaining about the window isn't large enough. So HTOP as well. Time to Flatpak in some apps. Checking if Flatpak is installed, which it is. Flatpak does work on Fedora out of the box, but no third-party repositories are enabled. And this is due to Fedora's policy on avoiding non-free or external software sources unless the user explicitly opts in, which is why FlatHub has to be added manually. With that sorted, install Spotify through Flatpak, install GIMP through Flatpak, nice and quick on this, install MPV through Flatpak, create open source media player, and to finish off Flatpak, a bit of a whopper. RuneLite, the OSRS client. Let's see how this 11-year-old MacBook Air handles it. And you can see the CPU temperatures on the left. And let's just say, it gets toasty. Temperatures spike over 100 degrees, so I'm not going to keep this going for very long before it starts to boil itself alive. Quickly install LM sensors. This lets me physically see the RPM of the fan, so I know the fan is spinning up properly. Probably something I should have installed first. But you can see there the RPM for the fan labelled exhaust. I'm also running a command to output the battery stats. And from that, we can see the battery is only at 48% capacity, with 26 watt hours remaining out of the almost 55 it started with. And Wi-Fi needed a bit of work. These MacBooks use Broadcom Wi-Fi chipsets, which requires proprietary drivers, I said it, proprietary, that Fedora doesn't include by default. By installing the correct Broadcom drivers resolves the issue and restores Wi-Fi functionality. Overall, Fedora on this MacBook Air has been a really solid experience. Once initial quirks are sorted, things like the fan control and Wi-Fi drivers, it runs smoothly, feels responsive, and honestly, breathes new life into an 11-year-old machine. It's not perfect, and you do have to put a bit of the work in, but as a daily Linux system on aging Apple hardware, Fedora feels stable, fast, and surprisingly well suited for it. Just stay away from the GNOME desktop. Now, with the MacBook Air in a pretty good working state running Fedora, it's time for it to take its place with my other bargain Macs. In between my £8 2008 MacBook and my £20 2015 MacBook Pro. Not too bad for £15, hey? Thanks for watching. Joe.